Okay, I have a little bit of a confession to make. It's Romania Black, and here's the thing. I am leaving for my trip tomorrow morning at like 6 a.m. and this is the night before, and I didn't think I was gonna have time to watch episode 13, but I was sitting here and I was like, oh, I've got my packing and everything done a little bit early. I've got a couple hours to spare before I need to go to bed. I could watch episode 13. So I want to be completely transparent with you all, and I will tell the Discord. I'm probably not going to edit this video and get it all, because that takes a while. So I'm not going to edit it and get it up and ready to go until I get back from my trip. But I was like, I could go ahead and record the reaction and the discussion. And just save the editing for when I return. You know, that's doable, because it's been literally a week since I watched episode 12, and I was like, am I really gonna make it 2 weeks until I watch episode 13? That seems unfair, and I have the opportunity, so why not? So that's what I'm doing. It's Romania Black, and yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and watch episode 13. That way, I will be able to check the comments when I get back for episode 14, which I'll have to make up episode 14. So episode 14 is going to come out. I have it planned to where this episode is coming out the Wednesday after I get back, and then I'll do like a catch up with episode 14, have it come out the Sunday of that same week, and then have episode 15 ready to go. And then we'll be back on schedule. Then we'll be back on track. That's the plan. I'm excited about that. So yeah, so you guys can basically get a double dose of Apothecary, right? But the last 2 episodes, so steamy, all the things, and of course MaoMao's like, nah. Poor Jinshi. I felt so bad for Jinshi. Jinshi lost to a frog, like a literal amphibian. He lost to a dog, a literal dog, and then he also lost to a ball, like a literal ball. I love that you have, like, he lost metaphorically because MaoMao was in denial about his penis, but he also lost to a literal frog. You have him losing to a dog in the form of Lee Haku, and a literal dog that fell on him, which someone pointed out, I think it was Anime Annie, that's like a big ass dog. That would have hurt. And then he literally lost to an oxbazor, which is a gallbladder stone, not a testicle, but metaphorically, I mean, which I want to talk about with the comments, but episodes 11, 12 were great, but they also, at the end of the core, gave us no explanations as to what's going to happen next, and there's still so much left unsaid. I was like, oh, well, okay, sure, be that way. So, I want to go through these comments. Cough Me, over on Discord for episode 12, said they pointed out that MaoMao in the cave touched Jinshi 3 times, and by touched, I mean she groped that frog. And I responded with, well, that kind of makes up for Locken noticing how Jinshi touched MaoMao on the shoulder during their match 3 times. So whenever Locken was like, he will have to get revenge upon Jinshi for touching her on the shoulder 3 times, I'm like, well, Locken, joke's on you. Your daughter's already got revenge for you. By giving him a case of blue balls. So I thought that was really fun to mention. H-Banana7 for episode 12 pointed out, I also remember when Jinshi was dressed down to go to the palace with MaoMao, his name was Jinka, another name that has the ka in it for flower. And I was like, that's crazy. So that was such crazy foreshadowing of Jinshi's name. Like, also, if you think about it, Jinka is literally Jinshi pulling the Princess Jasmine and walking around town without any responsibilities. That's what Jinshi wants to do. I don't think Jinshi wants to be an emperor. I don't think Jinshi wants to be tied to the palace forever. If it were up to him and MaoMao would go off and be an apothecary and apothecary's husband out and live their cottage core life for the rest of their days. So him doing the persona of Jinka is kind of like him at where he wants to be. Maybe, possibly. We'll have to see. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. And then Pineapple541 said with episode 12, you are absolutely right. The name Kazuigetsu sounds like a Japanese name because it is one. More specifically, it's the Japanese reading of the original Chinese name. There are actually multiple cases of this throughout the series. Gyokyo is the Japanese reading of the Chinese name Yuye. Shisho is the reading for Ji Chang. And even Jinshi is an alternate reading of the name Rinshi. As for the titular name Kazuigetsu, the original Chinese name would actually be pronounced as Hua Reiyu. So I've seen the name Hua a lot in Chinese Danmai, so I know of that. And then Chang and Ji. So I thought that was really interesting. I like that. Also Rinshi, I like that name too. Jinshi and Rinshi. Rinshi, I love it. So thank you for that information, Pineapple. I really appreciate it. And then my mind was kind of like, because Sebastian Weinberg for episode 11 pointed out in season 1, when Jinshi was sparring with Basen, he praised Basen for exhibiting the famed power of the Ma clan. And I was like, oh, I forgot they did tie back to that early on in season 1. And I had forgotten about that. So that's a nice little callback. I think that's fun. That's cool. Nice. So yeah. Thank you all so much for the comments. I know there were a lot of comments that the mods flagged, mainly just because they were getting into things in the light novel. And there are some things like the last couple of times where people have brought up light novel information that's been left out of the series. The following episode, it's revealed, and they just moved it from that place to a new place. So I kind of try to tell people in the comments that, you know, maybe if we wait an episode or two and see if it comes up, and then if it doesn't, then check in and add it, and I can check out the comments. Because I want to read people's comments, but if it's giving away stuff that the following episode could talk about, I'm like, I kind of want to wait and see what the series gives us. So we'll just have to wait and see, right? But I'm so glad I get a chance to watch this 13th episode. Now, immediately, the very first second when I pulled it up, I noticed the core was different, and I was like, okay, I want to at least wait until episode 14 or 15 before I watch the OP, because I don't want to get spoiled, and I don't know if this OP has spoilers or not, and I'm recording this before I can ask the Discord. So I'm going to avoid episode 13's OP and wait till at least next week before we get into this. So I'm going to actually start at 1 minute and 29 seconds in. There's a bowl of ice cream with what looks like raisins and fruit on it. Whatever that's going to amount to. So anyway, we'll just have to wait and see and find out. So I'm excited. We're going to start this at 1 minute and 29 seconds in the reaction link down below. But we're going to check out episode 13 of season 2 of the Apothecary Diaries. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1. And I'll see you all on the other side. Oh, I'm so glad I got to watch that before I left. That was going to drive me crazy not getting to see, because essentially I would have to wait like 2 weeks before I could see another episode. And I was like, no. So you tell me that Lolan and Shiswe aren't the same person, because I feel like with every episode, I get more and more validated and I feel more vindicated by my theories. And I'm like, no, they're the same person. They have to be. At this point, I'm like, no, they are. So we're going to talk about it in this episode. But I am 99% sure at this point that Shiswe and Lolan are the same exact person. Now, what that means and why she's going around getting all the tea and what the end result is, we're going to talk about that as well. Because I don't know. I get the idea, and I probably should have brought out Whiteboard Coon, but it's fine. I get the idea. I don't think that Lolan is intending to harm the royal family. I don't know if that is the case. However, I'm very, very interested in what the deal is and if it's going to be, because like the ED wasn't spoilery, which that was good, but it leads this like little triangle between Lolan and Xiaolan and MaoMao. And I would like to think that Lolan, aka Shiswe, is a nice person and wouldn't do harmful things. But I'm very curious to see what's going on. So I have theories, but we're going to see if that plays out in this episode. We're going to talk about it. So I don't want to get, my chickens, hatching before we've even counted the eggs. So, okay. So this here, these look like eunuchs that are coming into work. And who happens to come in but Suire. Suire is in the lineup. So I am very curious, because Suire is a tall individual. And so they're going through the names. And then when they get up here, Suire is at the front of the line and said next. And Suire comes up dressed as a eunuch. and has like a slight limp, which they're like, what's this? What's wrong with your leg? And we don't get to see exactly what's up, but on their hands are various like scars and marks. So I have a couple questions. One question is, how did Suire get the bum leg and the cuts on their hands? Is that intentional? Is it an illusion, a disguise? Is it to confuse the man? Is it to get out of being sent to the rear palace? Although when they said there was a really handsome eunuch, I'm like, oh, is it Suire? I've always felt since the very first time we met Suire, and I can't exactly pinpoint my reasoning for it, but I've gotten like a trans mask vibe from Suire, and I don't know why. Just the presence and aura that they give out, it seems like they are portraying themselves as female when they're with the other concubines and servants, but there's a part of them that I'm like, are they trans? I don't know. I don't know if that's their character, and I can't decide. And so if they're posing as it, because I think what tipped me off and made me think that way is that when we saw the person with the hair up and the hat on that had poisoned the other people in the previous episodes, I thought it was Suire trying to imitate them. And they had just put their hair up and it was like a Mulan moment. But I don't know. So Suire fascinates me. I don't know if they're meant to be like a trans-coded character. I don't know if they're disguising themselves or they're being non-binary and they're just going between, or they're gender fluid, and that's where they could be gender fluid and they're just going between each. I actually like that better. I think that works better for Suire, that they're gender fluid, because at times they seem like they present more female and at times they present more masculine. And it just depends on the situation and circumstance. So maybe they are more gender fluid as a character, which is cool, but I want to know why Suire got those marks, why their leg is injured, what happened, what's the backstory there, why are they in line to be inspected and be sent to the rear palace as eunuchs, what's going on there. I have lots of questions for Suire, and I'm very curious to see where this ends up going, because they just give us that opening scene and then they kind of bookend it, and we don't really see Suire's face, but that's Suire. What's interesting to me is that Suire and Shiswe are two characters who have gotten close to MaoMao in various capacities in kind of contrasting ways. Like Suire and MaoMao were instantly like attracted but also repelled from one another. Like Suire does not seem to approve of MaoMao and what they do, and it's kind of like, you're a burden and you're in my way, whatever their goal is. And MaoMao's kind of like, you're brilliant, but you're also my arch nemesis. Whereas with Lolan, aka Shiswe, Shiswe and MaoMao, they're besties. They're best of friends. They get along great. They seem like they are morally tied together. But I feel like I don't know if this is like a triangle, and it's going to be like, is Shiswe / Lolan trying to find out the plots and plans of the envoys / Suire, and then MaoMao's over here in another sect, and their interests are all colliding together because the imperial family is like in the center of it. I really should have brought out Whiteboard Coon. It will probably have to happen in episode 14. But I don't think that whatever Lolan is trying to do, I don't think it's to harm the imperial family. And that complicates things, because the last two episodes where there was the assassination attempt on Jinshi at her father's place, it's like, well, if she's not trying to hurt the royal family, why was there an assassination attempt at Shisho's place where Jinshi was at? And if she likes MaoMao and she seems to question MaoMao's relationship to Jinshi in this episode, if she's suspicious about it, why would she put her friend in danger? And right now, with the evidence we have before us, I don't think she's actively trying to hurt Jinshi or MaoMao or the imperial family. I think that Lolan is trying to find out what the envoys are doing and to crack down on the people. I feel like Lolan is trying to target, alongside her father and the other people, she's trying to find out all of the tea. She's trying to go about, she's like Princess Jasmine. She has her peasant clothes on as Shiswe. She's going about the rear palace. She's gone to all the places where the tea and the gossip is to be heard. And she's gathering all this information, and she's trying to use it to kind of corner and track down the envoys and figure out what they're doing, but also to corner and trap Suire and figure out what they're doing and how this is impacting the Imperial Palace. Because I feel like Lolan really respects the Dowager Empress. And if she respects the Dowager Empress and what she's doing, the last thing she would want to do is put her son and or sons/grandson in danger. So that's kind of where I'm at. I feel like Shiswe could be an ally to MaoMao in the long run against Suire and the envoys, but she's doing it in a secretive manner, not telling anybody about it, which, I mean, in this series, people keeping their identities a secret? What? It's not like we just had that come out of the bag last week with Jinshi. I mean, it's just one of those things. And there is no way in my mind that Lolan is not Shiswe. There's no way. I'm fully convinced. So I want to go to the scene. I wanted to hear her talk. Because she said, Lady Lolan. I want to hear this real quick. Yeah, it's her. She just said so, and I was like, that's Shiswe's voice. I could look up the voice actresses. I could. But I'm not going to spoil myself doing that. I want the show to tell me. But yeah. So the question is, what does she know? What has she found out? What has she found out? Also, the way that she has the eyeliner under her eye, you know what it gives me? I'm watching Word of Honor right now, and I'm not going to spoil it for y'all, but there is a character who maybe wears red eyeliner, who has kind of a dual personality, and I'm getting those vibes. I'm getting those vibes. And she has like the praying mantis insect theme. I don't know. Lolan fascinates me more and more, and I want to know more of her backstory and why she is the way that she is. And I believe that I want to know more and more because Shiswe is fascinating, and I want to see how what's the intersection of these personas, and why is she so different between them. I mean, girl's an actress. She likes the theater, so we're going to see where that leads us. Xiaolan is adorable. I feel like MaoMao has her two besties. She has Xiaolan and she has Shiswe. And Xiaolan is such a sweetheart. The most angel of angels. The lambs of lambs. So I think it's interesting that we have this conversation that came up in season 1 kind of tie back around where Xiaolan's like, you know, my 6 months of service are up after this. I'm not going to have a job. And she's like, well, if I was from a rich family, I could, you know, maybe get some offers for marriage. But now I just need to find a job to support myself. That's not the case for me. And she asks if MaoMao has any connections with her sweet little angelic face. I think it's interesting that she talks about that because I don't think MaoMao would ever consider marriage connections once her terms of service were up. I think she just wanted to go back to being an apothecary. But that is a career. It is something she can do. So Xiaolan's like, I can't make medicine. Where do I go? I thought, you know, if she can read and write, would it be advantageous for her to work for one of the concubines? And that seems to be kind of where the bathhouse thing is leading to. Like she could go work for the concubines or find a concubine that will let her serve as like a maid or lady in waiting. Like that seems like it would be a great job. Like she can read, she can write, she's loyal, she can massage. Like if these concubines find out girl's a good massage therapist, get you that on lock because it's not a bad gig. So I feel like the baths are going to help her find a job and be able to stay. The only sad part about that is if she finds a job with a concubine, she'll have to leave MaoMao and go work for said concubine, and MaoMao won't be able to just go see her whenever. So that's kind of the sad thing. Like the ED very much feels like a sunset moment. The ED feels like kind of a tease where it's like, oh, Xiaolan and MaoMao and Shiswe are together, like the first OP where they were like drawing in the sand. They're together forever, but the series is going to show us that they're not together forever. They're going to go separate ways. Xiaolan's going to become a lady in waiting maybe for a concubine if she gets a connection hooked up in the bathhouse. Shiswe is going to be Lolan. And then that's going to go somewhere. Although MaoMao may be able to go see her. And then MaoMao's going to have to figure out what she does. So, So I like that MaoMao wanted her to find a good place to work once she was done with the Rear Palace. But the only place, when MaoMao said that she had connections, I was thinking of Gyokyo. I was like, you have a woman that you are helping that doesn't have a lot of ladies in waiting. maybe she could use one more. But then again, Gyokyo is being very selective on who she picks, and she literally just hired 3 more on. Like, just shuffling and MaoMao might be overkill. And even though Xiaolan is an angel and a sweetheart, she doesn't have any like connections to Gyokyo. So I don't know if Gyokyo would trust her based on MaoMao's word alone or what. So that's what I was thinking. I was like, oh, she'll be a lady in waiting. But no, she recommends the Verdigris house at the Pleasure District. And now here's the thing. Not every man in this world loves big boobs, contrary to popular belief. Because otherwise, ladies with no boobs would be single, and that'd be that. But there are men that are totally... There are ass men. And there are women that do not mind small breasts. So, why are we having this conversation? Why is Apothecary Diary having us have these conversations? Damn. Anyway, so there are guys that would be attracted to her, that would go to the brothel to see her. Hell, this episode was a Yuri episode for sure. But yeah, but I like that MaoMao's like, you know, being a courtesan is like a last decision, a final destination, last final desperate moments. This is your last option kind of thing, because it is a form of imprisonment in a lot of ways. So MaoMao's like, I'm not just going to recommend that you just do this. Like, it's not something for everyone. Right? And so MaoMao's like, I don't know. Maybe we could find somebody else with connections. She's like, I could introduce her to Master Jinshi, but I'd get her mixed up in whatever trouble he is in. So I liked that line because the part of me was like, her getting Xiaolan introduced to Jinshi. What I like about it is in season 1, MaoMao would have not wanted to introduce anybody to Jinshi because she'd be afraid that they would like fall in love with Jinshi, or that Jinshi would be flirty with him or whatever. But after she's gotten to know Jinshi a little bit more, she realizes that Jinshi's not like that, and that he doesn't really care if girls flirt with him. He's kind of like, whatever, because he loves MaoMao. But I like that that's no longer her concern. Now her concern is, oh, Jinshi's mixed up in some stuff that I don't even fully understand, but I know it's serious, and I don't want to get Xiaolan, my friend, kind of involved in that either. So anyway, guess who's back in the house? Guess who shows up but Shiswe, you know, just out of the blue. And Xiaolan's like, know any good places they're looking to hire? And she's like, well, I don't have any connections, but I know where to make connections. Shiswe is smart. Girl is very smart. And she knows if you go to the baths, you'll get all the gossip. You can find out all the info, all that good stuff. And so I do like the world building where they talk about the servants having the giant bath where hundreds can be. And then each of the consorts get their own private bath. And then there's like smaller baths that are kind of like mid-range for the mid-ranking concubines. And they do it that way. So that's kind of cool. I like that. And I like MaoMao talking about the concept that she was kind of spoiled as a kid in a way, because she grew up getting to experience the hot baths with the princesses in the Verdigris house, whereas most people that are commoners, like Xiaolan, could only use like cold water, which modern conveniences have spoiled me. I hate a cold bath, a cold shower and a cold bath. Even in the summer, just make it lukewarm. I love hot water so much. I know a lot of people do without, and I guess you'd learn. But that is my one privilege that I'm kind of like, ooh, a hot shower. You can't beat a hot shower. So, but yeah. So we cut back to reality. And she's like, being able to use a proper bath as a servant is really nice. Yeah, it is a perk. And so Shiswe just jumping in like, girl, she is something else. And they're like, well, it would be hot at this hour. It's too early. So anyway, she's like, well, I usually come a bit later, so I didn't know. Now, MaoMao makes note that Shiswe has got some goods going on, right? Which is interesting to me, which is fascinating for a couple reasons. One, she dresses in baggy clothes because it makes her appear younger. If she dresses in baggier clothes, you don't see how like womanly her figure is, and it makes her appear younger because again, Shiswe's probably in her 20s. She's probably older than MaoMao. I'm guessing. or early 20s, and as a consort. So she is a full-grown woman, I feel, but she's masquerading as a younger. She's pulling an opposite Jinshi. She's pulling a reverse Jinshi. Jinshi is a 19-year-old that's trying to be a 24-year-old to confuse everybody. Shiswe, I believe, is Lolan pretending to be a 19-year-old when she's actually 24. I think it's the total reverse of Jinshi, and I think that she wears the baggier clothing so that people think that she's younger, because usually, you know, like Xiaolan, if you put Xiaolan next to Gyokyo and told everybody they were the same age, people probably wouldn't believe it because Xiaolan just appears like younger. Usually, I had my best friend talk about this. My best friend said when she was maybe 12 or 13, she went through puberty. Like, women usually go through puberty really fast. Like I shot up to like 5. I'm 5'8", and by the time I was 12, I was 5'7". So I shot up really fast in my height and grew up really fast. But my best friend was talking about, like, she is like a double D. Like, she has big boobs. And so she said that by the time she was like a freshman in high school, she had already like gone through puberty and developed. And she said people all the time were like, oh, those aren't real, or, oh, you're not really that old, that young, or whatever. And she's like, nope, that's just how my body works. So it's like, you know, that happens. So I'm not saying it's impossible that Shiswe couldn't be like younger or like 17 or 18 like MaoMao is. But I feel that she wears the baggy clothes to make herself look younger, but also to masquerade the fact of how her body looks, because other people who see Lolan all the time probably know what kind of figure she has. So it makes her less likely to be identifiable. But not only that, I feel like in some respects, maybe she hides her ample bosom because she doesn't want the emperor visiting her all the time. Because that bosom would attract the emperor. The emperor would be like, I'm kind of into that. So he'd probably go visit her more often if she knew she was well endowed with this big bosom. So she probably wears all these different layers and clothing and styles to confuse him and to keep him from noticing. So it makes her less identifiable and less likely for him to come around. That's just my theory. But girl's got a great body. So, and MaoMao's like, okay. I like that MaoMao's just like, hey, like, everybody's getting handsy in this episode. In this pseudo Yuri episode, everybody's getting handsy. And Shiswe's like, oh, it's just a habit of mine. And she's like, well, you'll have to wash up before you can go to the tub. And she's like, okay. I think another part about all of this is that Shiswe just likes being I think Shiswe is just kind of weird. She just wants to let her freak flag sound like Evie Oddly, her freak frag. I think she wants to let just her freak flag oh my God, freak flag fly. I think she wants to let her freak flag fly. And being Lolan, the consort, daughter of Shisho, doesn't let her do that. So she's able to be goofy and be a kid around them, right? So also her with her hair down. I was trying to think if we've seen Lolan with her hair down. I think we have when she was dressed up in the Shakespearean Western garb, but I don't know if we have or not. I'll just save that. We'll find out. I'm sure it'll all come back, but I feel like she's had her hair down before, right? And she wants to use the shampoo. But here's the other thing. She gets all the shampoo bubbles and suds on her, and at the time, it's super cute. Like Xiaolan's, you know, she needs Head and Shoulders or Clean and Clear. What was the there was a kid's shampoo everybody used when we were kids. It came in like a little fish bottle. Was it Clean and Clear, or no, it was like No Tears. What was the fish shampoo? You're all gonna craze me. Fish shampoo for kids. What was somebody, people have looked this up. Oh, L'Oreal. It was like L'Oreal Kids. Yep, it was the L'Oreal Kids. They were in little fish bottles, and the thing was that it was like there was no tears. It was very gentle shampoo. I feel like Xiaolan needs that because she's like, oh, it's in my eye stinging. At the time, when Shiswe was putting the bubbles all around her and they look over and she's covered in the suds, it's like, here's the thing. Her jumping in the bath prematurely and just jumping in while there are people around seems like it's something that's goofy and like, oh, you shouldn't do that, Shiswe. You shouldn't jump in the tub. But what if she was jumping in the bath to avoid people noticing her or being able to identify her? And then when she's sitting there putting the suds all over her body, you're like, oh, that Shiswe just acting a goofy fool. No, she put the SUDS over her face and everything so you couldn't recognize her body. So if there are people in the bathhouse that were looking over towards her, they wouldn't be able to identify her as Lolan. There is a reason she's doing all these things. And MaoMao is just like, oh, what a quirky and eccentric young lady. But nah. Romania sees through it. I'm like, no, she's doing all this to not be identifiable as Lolan, right? It's all for a reason. So then she puts her hair up and gets in the bath, and they're all in there. But I like that Xiaolan's like, no, I'm from the countryside. I just want to use regular water. That's fine. So anyway, Shiswe takes them out and says, look, we can make connections this way. And of course, she wraps up her hair so that people can't notice her. Again, being not noticed. And they go back to where the mid-ranking concubines are, and they do the massage therapy for them. And yeah, I do like the it's not microblading, but it's like they in the mall, which malls are not really much of a thing in the US anymore, which is tragic, but there was always a woman that did like the sculpting. She'd have the wire and she would pluck your eyebrows and shape them with it, and that's exactly what this is. There was always someone in the mall that would have that, and I always was like, no, that sounds, I've never touched my eyebrows before. I was like, once I start sculpting them or something, then I'll have to keep doing it, and I don't want to do that. So MaoMao's like, oh, I learned all sorts of things from the brothel, like how to trim leg hair and do it without except, which honestly, I know that you're thinking, oh, well, that seems very tedious, and using like the band to like cut the hair, that seems like it would hurt and be long, but also dull razors in those times, that sounds like staph infection central. Like, no, I've gotten a staph infection before from a razor. I was like at a farm show in the middle of the countryside, and I used a razor that was kind of like, it had got some bacteria on it, and staph infections are not fun at all. They're pretty serious. So I was like, eh. So I definitely could understand not wanting to use a dull razor blade on your legs and instead do this, because then you can just pour lotion over it and it's fine. Also, MaoMao has got like a health spa entire collection going. She has scented oils. She can do like the wire hair removal. Girl, if things don't work out in the apothecary business, I think you have a future in spa services. I think she's going to have it covered. I think it'll be fine. But yeah, I really liked that this was how all of them get the tea. All of these women, it's like going to a hair salon. If you want to know the town gossip, you go to the hair salon, because what's everybody doing? All these women are just sitting there, and men, women, kids from high school, old people, they're all sitting there telling the tea and what they've heard on the streets, and everybody's just sitting there hearing it all up. It's like, yeah, you go to the hair salon if you want to know the tea, and you would, in this case, go here to the baths to get all the good gossip. I love it. And I love that Shiswe helps Xiaolan to be able to get a job, possibly with a court lady who needs someone to tag on. And Xiaolan's really good at her jobs. So the question is, where's she going to end up at? I feel like Xiaolan is going to find a job from working in the baths. It's just a matter of time. That's the question. So then Shiswe talks about that sometimes they're given things like combs and necklaces that they've stopped using. Even if they're broken, they sell well if the material is good. I don't know. That in itself feels like something that we need to take note of, because if Shiswe's been going around gathering and collecting items that she can barter or that give her clues and insights into the inner workings of the Rear Palace, that seems like it's important too. And maybe she's learning what other people... Again, I feel like Shiswe is trying to track down Suire and get in on this and the envoys by going around and figuring all of this stuff out. And MaoMao even says Suire never misses a good deal. I feel kind of sad because I think that Shiswe is Lolan. And I think that at some point, this is all going to come crashing down. And I feel like MaoMao is going to get caught in the middle of it. And I feel like it's going to break MaoMao's heart, because I feel like she's genuinely developed a friendship with Shiswe. And when she finds out what's going on, maybe I'm wrong though. Maybe her and Shiswe, if all this goes down and we find out that Shiswe is Lolan and she's been doing it to save the Imperial Palace, and the Emperor's like, okay, cool, you're weird, I'm not sleeping with you, but you can stay, then maybe it'll go on and maybe the Emperor will sleep with her. I don't know. Everybody thinks she's pregnant too. I don't think Shisui is pregnant. I do not. I think that the loose clothes is a way for her to hide herself, and people are assuming that she is pregnant because the Emperor seems like he just is like a sim. He walks in there and it's like a sim and he has the word bubble and it's like Shisui's head and it's like an X through it and he's like, and then he just leaves. Like, that's what it feels like. Or he's just like, he just speaks in Simlish and goes, hangs out with Li Hua or Gyokyo. I feel like that's what happens. I don't think Shisui is pregnant. I think that's just a rumor. And I think that she's just taking advantage of it and it allows her to help. And plus, here's the thing. If people think that Lolan is pregnant, then her being absent and not coming to functions is the reason why. That gives her an alibi. It gives her an excuse not to be there. If she's not showing up to functions because she's running around with MaoMao and Xiaolan, then the reason why is because everybody thinks she's pregnant and they're like, oh shit, Lolan could be pregnant, so that's why she can't come to the function today, just like Gyokyo and Li Hua. It gives her an out. So of course she's going to roll with it. So yeah. Now, Hong Niang is not happy about MaoMao and this whole bath situation. She's like, this seems like a bad idea. This doesn't seem like it's going to lead into anything good. It seems suspicious. But Gyokyo brings up a good point that MaoMao and Shisui and them are thinking of. Gyokyo's like, MaoMao could find out some interesting gossip, and that could be beneficial to us. So Gyokyo knows what's up. She's on the up and up about things, right? So yeah, they talk about the rumors. I kept thinking that someone was going to, I kept thinking somebody was going to bring up Jinshi as part of the rumors, but they did not. That was not brought up at all. Instead, we have, there's like one lady in waiting in particular that they focused on twice in this. They focused on the back of her head at one point when these two women were gossiping. They focused on the back of her head, and then they focused on her again at one of the tables coming up. So, but some of the women all have the same hairdo, so it's kind of hard to tell. But I felt like that one woman was in multiple scenes. Okay. But they think Lolan is pregnant as well. So, and they're like, she hasn't been seen very much outside lately, and when she is, she's wearing relaxed clothes. I mean, she probably hasn't been seen very much outside lately because she's running around collecting bugs and bell crickets, but what do I know? It's just a rumor. So yeah, I mean, it's a cause for celebration and caution. You have possibly three women, I think it's two, that could all have the future emperor. So then it could lead to like an inner war between them. Also, I've been noticing that now you have Gyokyo with the red theme and Li Hua with the blue theme, and Lolan's got the purple, which is a mix of the two of them. Interesting. I don't know. Maybe Shisui as Lolan is pregnant and her boobs have just filled out because of her pregnancy. I don't know. I don't think she's pregnant though. I don't believe so at all, but we'll see if that ends up happening. So they're talking about that there's a new eunuch that showed up. And so they're like, is he over there? Well, no, of course not. Of course not. We're not going to see the eunuch today. So MaoMao brings up, like, I didn't think that there could be eunuchs. And then Shisui brings up that they are slaves from a foreign country. She's like, I think that there are some countries that castrate and enslave foreigners. So maybe they escaped or rescued from those places. There's 30 of them, so there must have been a large-scale raid or something. I'm curious about Suire and why they were amongst the eunuchs. I'm curious. Yeah, and even when Suire looks over, when Shisui looks over to them, she looks pretty serious, and MaoMao takes note that Shisui is actually pretty smart. Again, y'all, I'm so curious. So that's when Xiaolan says, well, I'm sure that whoever this handsome eunuch is, he's not as handsome as Master Jinshi, though. And MaoMao's like, oh, let's not talk about Jinshi right now. And they're like, what's wrong, MaoMao? Now, you know what? As much as I love seeing MaoMao and Jinshi's relationship and the growth that it went through, literally and figuratively last week, I do think this week was really nice to give them a break, to like take a break from all of that and just let MaoMao kind of like distance for a second and let them both kind of like simmer down a wee bit. So MaoMao's like, oh, we were doing good. Do we have to talk about Jinshi? And she's like, nothing. So Shisui says, come to think of it, you're spending a lot of time with Master Jinshi. And MaoMao's like, I'm doing it on orders from the concubine. The funny thing that probably will help MaoMao more than anything is the fact that MaoMao genuinely doesn't want to talk about it and genuinely never looks like she's infatuated with Jinshi. So from an outsider perspective, they'd be like, oh, she hates him. Even though that's not the case, and we know that's not the case, Shisui's probably like, yeah, she really doesn't want to be around him. Now, whether or not that comes back to bite her, I don't know. She's like, it's just a frog. It was just a frog. And that's when we see Lishu going to the bath, I guess, to shave. Now, these three sisters, they are curious to me. We'll come back to Lishu in a hot second. But these three sisters are interesting. I like that we're getting more of their personalities. Like Seiku is the modest, very well bosom gifted with bosoms. That she is the youngest sister. And because I think isn't Hoku the eldest, and then the middle one has the white ribbon, and then Seiku is the youngest. But Seiku is very modest and very shy, and the sisters are like, you need to go out and make friends, go on. I like that they question MaoMao and why Gyokyo trusts her, and MaoMao's like, well, MaoMao's like, how do I say? It's been a long story of how I got here. But she's like, I know it must look suspicious because I'm gone all the time. But she's like, look, I'm just a taste tester. And if anybody attempts to poison her, then I'm going to be the first one to die. That's my role. There's nothing any further. So I like the one sister says, you have many friends on the outside, but try to keep it under control. When a senior worker in this unfamiliar pavilion keeps wandering off without us, we feel a bit lonely. I like what she's saying there. She's like, look, you need to be on your guard. I know you got a lot of friends, mainly some that could possibly be consorts in their own right. But she says, you going out does look suspicious. And if you're trying to not have something pinned on you, you might not want to do that. And so MaoMao's like, oh, well, that's a fair point. So she offers to bring Seiku to the baths. And they're like, yes, you should go and make friends. She's super cute. I like Seiku. But God, Seiku showing up and Xiaolan and Suire being like, or not Suire, Shisui. I always get Shisui and Suire. I want to say their names opposite each other because they both have this, the Sui and she. Like, they're too close. Mangaka, creator, why did you make their names so similar? Don't do that. So Shisui and Suire. But anyway, whenever she like rounds the corner and there's Shisui and Xiaolan like, she's like, and I'm out. It's super cute. And she's like, welcome to our quirky friend group. I like that MaoMao says they're harmless, mostly. They'll probably still cause a little harm, but it's okay. So yeah, so they get Seiku all up in there, and Seiku actually has a banging body. Good for her. And she's like, well, I'm supposed to be modest. And of course, Xiaolan's like, well, not all of us can have things that please the emperor. So anyway, they all get dressed to go and give these massages, and everything's going all fine. Seiku's doing okay. I like MaoMao describing it as slathering over a chicken breast. Which, like how asexual coded. I don't know if MaoMao is asexual. I feel like she's probably demisexual for Jinshi, but she just doesn't realize it yet. But I definitely think she's aromantic. She's not a romantic at all, which is sad because I'm like, come on, MaoMao. But I just, for someone that's not romantic at all about it and not being sensual about it, she's like, you're just slathering on chicken breast. Really funny. But here's the thing. So they're busy doing that. And then Lishu shows up and she falls down. And of course, MaoMao is like, oh, well, it was probably slick from the oil. And then she makes note of how Lishu's ladies in waiting are not the greatest. They're just kind of there to be there. And so the former taster being the head lady in waiting is probably the best thing for her. But she comes over to help her. And she's like, hey, I like that. She's like, look, I'm not a monster. I know season 1 I seemed kind of scary. especially with everything going on with Aduo. But she's like, no, I'm going to be here to help you. Honestly, MaoMao has won over every consort in the rear palace. MaoMao's won them over. Lihua, besties. Gyokyo, besties. Lolan, besties. And now you have Lishu, who she's won over by being kind and helping her with the razor burn and being like, hey, you're 15. I think that Lishu's a late bloomer. That's my headcanon. And so she's just now starting to grow like leg and arm hair that she's trying to like rid herself of. I feel really bad for Lishu. Lishu's had a horrible upbringing. Like, she was sent to the rear palace as an infant. That is so disturbing, to like be raised to be a consort. And this poor girl has done this for 15 years. She had to deal with a very creepy man who had a perverted fetish for girls and had to deal with that, and luckily came out of it unscathed. But now she's dealing, after that psychological business, she has to deal with the fact that luckily the current emperor is not into her, because great. But then she's just like, I'm just here. She's like, I'm just here as a consort that maybe I'll get old enough one day he'll think it's okay. But I don't think that's the case. I feel like with the whole situation that eventually Lishu, she'll probably stick around for a while, but I don't know if she'll ever like get with the emperor. I just can't see it. She doesn't have big boobs, and he has that past relationship through her with his dad, and I just can't see it. I just feel like she'll be able to stay there for a while and then leave, and somebody else will come in. But I don't know. I feel like she has to be old enough for that to happen, and I don't know what's going to happen with her. But I feel bad because it's like, what do you do with a consort that never gets with the emperor? Do they get married off to like military men, or do they go to like a convent? Like, what is she going to go back to the monastery? Like, what's going to happen to her? I genuinely feel bad for Lishu, and I don't know what's going to happen to her character if the emperor doesn't get with her, but she clearly doesn't seem to like want to get with him, you know? So I just feel bad for her. But anyway, so MaoMao's like, oh, I have a hair removal technique I want to try with you. So she leads her over here, and I'm going to tell you all right now, this was the nail in the coffin. This is the, at this moment, Shiswe is Lolan. And I am 99.9% sure. Because when she takes Lishu over there to give her the massage, she's like, here, lie down here. And Xiaolan and Seiku are like, oh, concubine Lishu, what is a high-ranking concubine doing here? And at that moment, Shisui stands up. She don't turn around. We don't get to see her facial expression. She conveniently walks off screen. Like, oh, I'll just go get this other thing over here. I don't want Lishu to see my face. Because Lishu has been around Lolan enough, she would recognize her instantly. So, yeah, that's why. Because I was like, oh, isn't that funny how Seiku and Xiaolan went over to help MaoMao because that's what they've been doing all day. And you stuck around. I guess you volunteered to stick around and help the other person with their massage so they weren't abandoned. Funny that. But yeah, that's exactly what happens. And meanwhile, we never see her again. She stays over the other women. And then funny too, when Lishu's like, hey, I want to go talk to you over here and kind of explain to you about why I take a bath here. Lolan doesn't join. Shisui doesn't. I should might as well just call her Lolan, but Shisui. Oh my God, does not join them. I can't imagine why. Show, you ain't pulling the wool over my eyes. I know it's her. It has to be. It's just a matter of time until the show decides to tell us that it's her. So I'm gonna wait. I don't want it to be confirmed. I know you all are sitting on your hands, fists in your mouth, popcorn being shoveled down. I know you all are waiting, but we just gotta wait a little longer. I think we're gonna find out by the end of this season that it's Lolan. I think we're gonna find out by the end of this season. We have to. I think that it is. I don't think they're gonna drag it out, and I think that's why Shisui and Xiaolan are in the. Oh, I think that's why they are in the ED together, because it's going to be revealed there. So I just remembered I need to tell the Discord not to tell me about the OP because I did skip it. So that's why my mind went blank for a second, but it's okay. We're near the end of this episode. So yeah, then at that point they talk about a ghost haunting the bathhouse at her pavilion. And there's someone there, someone in robes. What the fudge? What is happening? What is this? Why is there someone in robes? What's going on? Who's invaded her bath? Interesting. All the gossip from the tea house. So I love, MaoMao's like, oh, you said ghost story? I'm in. We're all good to go. Awesome. So I'm really excited to see what we're going to get next episode. I'm glad I only have to wait a week. That makes me feel better. But I'm super excited to see that go down. It will probably be, I know I get back for my trip the 14th, but I have other things I need to record for that week. So it will probably be like midweek, like the 16th or 17th before I can get to the episode. And then I'll have it ready for the following Sunday to come out. So just bear with me and thank you for being patient. But oh my God. So I'm super excited. MaoMao can't resist a ghost story. The last thing I want to say is about the ED. I like that we started the first ED with Jinshi looking up from the table, and now it's MaoMao's turn. And I kind of like that the ED focuses not necessarily on MaoMao and Jinshi, because again, MaoMao's like aromantic, asexual. She's not like, Jinshi's whole mind is just filled with thoughts of MaoMao, right? But for MaoMao, she's thinking of her friends and things like that. And I think that that's kind of cool. I like it. I like a character that, Jinshi's going to have to work for this. He's got to work for this romance, and that's okay. That's fine. But I'm really excited to see where this episode goes next week. But I'm going to take the tinfoil hat off for now and then bring it back for episode 14. And we'll see what we get. So anyway, I'm excited to hear your thoughts down below. But I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please be safe. Take care. And I'll see you all again very soon with episode 14 of the Apothecary Diaries. Season 2! Bye!